The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, Book 1. The Coming of the Martians, Chapter 6. The heat ray in the CHOBHAM Road. How the Martians can slay men so swiftly and silently is still a wonder. Many think they can generate intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute non-conductivity. This extreme heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose using a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the curved mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. But this is the first time anyone has proven these details. However it is done, a beam of heat is undoubtedly the essence of the matter. Heat and invisible, instead of visible, light. Whatever are combustible flashes into flame at its touch. Lead runs like water, softens iron, cracks and melts glass, and when it falls upon water, incontinently, it explodes into steam. Nearly 40 people lay under the starlight that night about the pit, charred and distorted beyond recognition. The common from Horsell to Mayberry was deserted and brightly ablaze all night. The news of the massacre reached CHOBHAM, Woking, and Ottershaw about the same time. In Woking, the shops had closed when the tragedy happened. Several people, shop people and so forth, attracted by the stories they had heard, were walking over the Horsell Bridge and along the road between the hedges that runs out at last upon the common. You may imagine the young people brushing up after the day's labours and making this novelty, as they would make any novelty, the excuse for walking together and enjoying a trivial flirtation. You may figure to yourself the hum of voices along the road in the gloaming. Of course, few people in Woking knew that the cylinder had opened, though Poe Henderson had sent a messenger on a bicycle to the post office with a special wire to an evening paper. As these folks came out by twos and threes upon the open, they found little knots of people talking excitedly and peering at the spinning mirror over the sand pits, and the newcomers were, no doubt, soon infected by the excitement of the occasion. By 8:30, when the deputation was destroyed, there may have been a crowd of 300 people or more at this place, besides those who had left the road to approach the Martians nearer. There were 3 police officers too, one of whom was mounted, doing their best, under instructions from Stent, to keep the people back and deter them from approaching the cylinder. There was some booing from those more thoughtless and excitable souls to whom a crowd is always an occasion for noise and horseplay. Stent and Ogilvy, anticipating some possibilities of a collision, had telegraphed from Horsell to the barracks as soon as the Martians emerged for the help of a company of soldiers to protect these strange creatures from violence. After that, they returned to lead the ill-fated advance. The description of their death, as seen by the crowd, tallies very closely with my impressions. The 3 puffs of green smoke, the deep humming note, and the flashes of flame. But that crowd of people had a far narrower escape than mine. Only the fact that a hummock of heathery sand intercepted the lower part of the heat ray saved them. Had the elevation of the parabolic mirror been a few yards higher, none could have lived to tell the tale. They saw the flashes and the men falling, and an invisible hand, as it were, lit the bushes as it hurried towards them through the twilight. Then, with a whistling note that rose above the droning of the pit, the beam swung close over their heads, lighting the tops of the beech trees that line the road, splitting the bricks, smashing the windows, firing the window frames, and bringing down in crumbling ruin a portion of the roof of the house nearest the corner. In the sudden thud, hiss, and glare of the igniting trees, the panic-stricken crowd seems to have swayed hesitatingly for some moments. Sparks and burning twigs began to fall into the road and single leaves like puffs of flame. Hats and dresses caught fire. Then came a crying from the common. There were shrieks and shouts, and suddenly a mounted policeman came galloping through the confusion with his hands clasped over his head, screaming, "They are coming!" A woman shrieked, and incontinently everyone was turning and pushing at those behind to clear their way to Woking again. They must have bolted as blindly as a flock of sheep. The crowd jammed when the road grew narrow and black between the high banks, and a desperate struggle occurred. All that crowd did not escape. 3 persons at least, 2 women and a little boy, were crushed and trampled there and left to die amid the terror and the darkness. That is the end of chapter 6. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.